Tucson, I got that heat, let's go.
Yes, the SMT Podcast is live. What is going on, y'all? SMT Nation in the house. Good to have you guys tonight. Ladies and gents, August 21st, 2020. Let's turn down the music just a bit for you. All right, so what are we going to do with today's show? We got a lot for you. Topics today. We've got a couple. We've got 3 of them, actually. We're going to talk Google, the FCC, and their little thing that they got brewing. We're going to talk AT&T, T-Mobile, and the FCC and their coverage maps, and they got a little thing going. And then I'm going to do a 5G rant. We're going to talk about what 5G is and what 5G is not. How's the music, y'all? Give me an audio check. Let me know how I'm sounding, the voice, the sound quality, clarity. Is the music a little overpowering? I can turn it down, of course, so just let me know. And, of course, once I get the video going, you guys can let me know that everything is all right. Music and voice is good? All right. Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. Thanks for the feedback. Let me do some hellos. So for those of you first time watching, or maybe you haven't caught on, the first 5 minutes, I say hello to everybody. I recognize all the members of the SMT Nation that were here early and things like that. So I always tell people, always fast forward. If you're on the replay crew, fast forward to about 5 or 6 minutes. And that's when the show actually starts. So, I would like to say hello to Nertz, Finney, Georgie, Angel. Thank you for stopping by. Martin, William, Mr. X. Shout out to you all. Mr. X, part of the Mod Squad. Hashtag Mod Squad if you got a blue wrench, blue name. Caleb as well. Garen, good to see you. Glad you could stop by tonight. Michael is here. Kazzy is here, Jeremy, Slaw Oates, Trailboy Gaming. You guys are awesome. Thanks for coming through. Joshua's here. Jose, my brother. Darius from another. Info Assistant is here. Chucky Riggs is in the house. Big time contributor and supporter of the channel. Appreciate you stopping by. Scott Thompson, Sean Robb, Tom is here. Appreciate you guys stopping by and taking the time to hang out. Dedication. Mr. Derby is here. If I didn't get to Joeseph yet, Joeseph is here. Tyran. Watch the language, please. The brother Ciova's in the house. Big shout out to Ciova. He's got a YouTube channel. He's also part of the Mod Squad. Big shout out to him. Chucky Riggs with the super chat. Sounds like they know they are lying about coverage. Yeah. We'll talk about that today, buddy. Yeah. RFK Tech is in the house. Appreciate you stopping by, man. Ram, what is up, dude? Smoking, choking. Spit some bars, Sneed. That beat slaps. Yo, my name is Bone on the microphone, and I smell nice because I wear cologne. Yeah. Oh, man. Tom, man. Teletech. Jihad. Sean, what is up, my dude? Thanks, Jose. Appreciate the feedback on the audio. Appreciate it, guys. Trying to make sure I say hi to everyone. Sean Bloom with the super chat. Appreciate it. Big shout out to the SMT Nation. Code is here. Benny D is in the house. Catching up. Henry, good to see you, man. Thanks for stopping by. Jeremy, if I didn't get to you yet. Michael Rodriguez is here. Good to see you. Jose, my brother, thank you for the super chat, man. Appreciate you. What is up, Lavendi? Good to see you, man. The homie Carlos finally shows up. Yeah, late. The homie Madbird is here. Yeah, they did lie. We'll talk about it today. That's your boy anyways. You love T-Mobile. All right, Gregory, what is up, man? Good to have you guys. JC is here. Gene is in the house. Good to have you as well. All right, let's go ahead and get this show started, shall we? Let's start the show. Yeah. All right. So my video is good. Let me know that you guys see me. I see you. Let me know that we are straight. Let's go ahead and get this thing going, shall we? Okay, so August 21st, 2020. Before we get started with today's show, let's recognize some of the things going on with the channel. In the description box, we have the SMT Patreon page link. If you guys want to get exclusive content, early access to videos, other perks and interactions, join a community of like-minded individuals, do check out the SMT Patreon page. We've got like 4 different tiers. You could donate. You support productions here. You support the cause. And you keep the production going. So big shout out to the patrons. And looking forward to, seeing that community grow. Twitter handle at sneedtech. We also do Periscope Lives on there occasionally. So do check that out as well if you're looking, for that type of interaction. Especially if you're on Twitter. Then just go ahead and follow. And I tweet out whenever there's new videos and whenever I do live streams. If the YouTube notification system's not working for you, that definitely helps. So, check that out. And go ahead and give this video a like. Like it. Give it that thumbs up. Share it. I know you got like 17 social media accounts, so go ahead and share it. If this is your first time here, maybe YouTube recommended it and you're just kind of lurking, go ahead and subscribe. Activate the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload from the SMT. All right, so that's it. That's it for the formalities. I will be doing the audio version of the podcast. I will be recording it, so you'll see a segment, where I kind of, start that process. And, yeah. So the first part of today's podcast, we're going to actually, speak to a topic that I don't know much about. This topic just kind of sprung up out of nowhere. I had no idea that this was going on. There is something going on with Google and some spectrum testing. And the reason I say I had no clue that it was going on is because seemingly it came out of nowhere and there is no pre-existing history of this. So let me go through that story and then we'll kind of work through some of the information. So Google has officially requested FCC approval for experimental testing in the 6 gigahertz frequency range. Now, in and of itself, it's not that big of a deal, but Google, it's not really their cup of tea. It's not really their lane. They don't really do this. They're not a wireless telecom. They're not a home internet provider. Now, Google does have Google Feye, which is an MVNO, but they don't own and operate their own network. So I don't know if it has anything to do with that. I'm not really sure. But it's an interesting thing because when Google gets involved in, now we know that they have fiber, right? Like Google Fiber is continuing to grow and we're seeing more and more the expansion in different markets there in Iowa now and so on. This is wireless. So it's interesting to see this direction. The timing is interesting too. The frequency, 6 gigahertz, right? So mid-band is going to be a big piece of 5G, obviously. The locations are a big kicker. And there's also some interesting security measures that Google is requesting. They want this to be considered highly sensitive and confidential. They don't want to know, or they don't want the public to know exactly what they're doing. But what they're calling new experimental radio service license access is what they're going to be studying. So it looks like they did disclose, or maybe the FCC possibly did disclose, that it's going to be a study on selective fading, which in my opinion sounds like it's a signal propagation study. They're probably going to test the 6 gigahertz frequency spectrum on different scenarios, like different types of terrain, different topography, clutter scenarios in cities with large buildings and maybe homes and apartments and things like that. Maybe they're going to be testing for traffic loads, different times of the day, testing in the morning, testing in the afternoon, in the evening, interferences. I don't know. It seems like a lot of that is probably fair game. Now, the interference studies is probably going to coincide with Wi-Fi 6. I see RFK Tech there kind of speaking about it. So there's probably, the FC is probably going to try to avoid any type of additional interferences. There's guard bands and other things to prevent this, but the testing is important. Before this stuff becomes, commercial product and they're going to be selling it to wireless consumers, they have to make sure that they do test it. So the locations are interesting. The state of California has 7 cities involved in this testing. That makes sense. That's where Google does Google things. San Diego, San Francisco, San Jose, Atwater, Los Angeles, Menlo Park. We're all mentioned for California for testing. So those are testing beds there. We also have Phoenix, Atlanta, Boulder, Des Moines, Tampa, Evanston, Illinois, Omaha, Kansas City, not Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, which is interesting, New York City, Las Vegas, Nevada, Oklahoma City, and Raleigh, North Carolina. Big shout out to Tim. And big shout out to Carlos in Vegas. So if you guys see anything going on, any type of testing or whatever, do let me know. Keep me in the loop. I'd love to see and hear what they're doing. Oh, and some other ones. Forgot these. Portland, Oregon, Austin, Texas, Provo, Utah, Reston, and Blacksburg, Virginia. So just to kind of top things off. Now, in and of itself, the testing is par for the course. What is the data going to be used for, though? They're obviously going to be collecting data and charting, effective range or signal fading or whatever it is. But what are they going to do with it? Is it for themselves? Is it for the FCC? Is it both? Who is it going to be sold to? We know how Google gets down. We know how they are about collecting data. So we wouldn't be surprised if it was utilized and sold for whatever purpose. But it's an interesting development that I think does deserve a little bit of attention. I will follow up on this in the future if more information becomes available. And if you are in one of those testing markets, let me know if you notice anything. Let me know if you see anything going on. They don't wear signs that say Google and testing, right? So it might not be easy to locate, but some people are pretty savvy and they figure things out. So do let me know, and we will be following up in that shortly. Interesting story. I always watch Google. Google does a lot of stuff. And anytime Google's involved, it's going to be a big thing. Like when Google decided to start doing fiber, we knew it was going to be big. When Google started doing the MVNO, it had a lot of people's attention. They're not that competitive because of the pricing model, but they're unique, right? So we will be watching that. It's an interesting development. All right, let's pivot over to our next story, shall we? All right, this next one is one that I makes me laugh. Only because, it's pretty standard when it comes to wireless telecom. All right, so story number 2. T-Mobile and AT&T do not want the FCC to force them to prove their 5G coverage claims. You don't say. Wireless telecom not wanting to keep it real. They don't want to be bothered. They don't feel compelled to have to do the testing themselves and prove their 5G coverage is what they say it is. Now, I'm not going to drag Verizon into this now because they're not part of the story. But if Verizon was part of the story, I'd be dragging them into it too. So don't feel like I'm omitting Verizon from this on purpose because they're not a part of it. The story in the article specifically, was built around the concept that it is T-Mobile and it is AT&T. And they are the carriers that are promoting and pushing the narrative of, low-band 5G being super available and super national and all of those things. So carriers like to make claims. Carriers will say and do anything. And they probably don't feel compelled to have to back it up. So when they make those claims, they will literally say whatever they feel like. And they don't really expect any pushback because it's all marketing to them. No matter what T-Mobile says, no matter what AT&T says, and no matter what Verizon says, never take them for their word when it comes to marketing. Marketing is simply that. Marketing is smoke and mirrors. They're just claims. You could say anything on a commercial and it's all good. Anything flies. And they often say that anything a salesman says is probably full of lies. It's just, you think about used car salesmen and it's just this stereotypical salespeople, right? Carriers will say, we have the most coverage. We have the best coverage. We have the highest speeds. We have the highest mean speeds. We have the highest median speeds. They'll say we have the most availability of 5G, the most availability of LTE. We have the best range in our 5G. Blah, 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 blah. They will say and do anything to try to convince you to spend your hard-earned money on their service. And they will try to kind of change and twist the narrative. They'll make their network seem like it's the ultimate network because they want to sell you on it. And they'll take whatever metric they do well in, and they will highlight that as the most important thing in wireless. So if it's speed, they will highlight that if they have the fastest network. And they'll say, this is the most important metric, which it's not. It's a very important metric, but it's not the only metric. One could argue that the availability is the most important metric, right? Big shout out to Ron. Thanks for the super chat, buddy. Yeah, that 3.5 to 3.9 megahertz range is important. The piece here that I want to make sure I highlight. Verizon says they have the fastest 5G. That's true. T-Mobile says they have the most 5G. Based on their maps, that's true. AT&T says they have the most 5G. Based on sites and tower sites and build-out. That's true. But everybody is twisting the wordplay, right? They're manipulating and twisting the narrative to fit their purpose, right? It fits their situation to make them look good so they can sell you on their product. The FCC is done with this. It looks like the FCC is finally having enough. The FCC wants the carriers to stop the marketing madness. If it's not true, they want it to stop and end. So they're working towards changing this trend. So false claims are now being questioned by the FCC. They're taking it a lot more seriously. We've seen them, the FTC and different bureaus, right? Business bureaus. They don't like the name 5GE that AT&T uses, right? Because it's not accurate, right? You look at 5GE, it makes it sound like it's a 5th generation technology. It's really a bridge gap of advanced LTE that's moving towards 5G. But based on the name moniker 5G, you'd think it was 5G if you were not an expert or, wirelessly inclined. Verizon at one point was saying they have, national 5G and that they have cities positioned across the country with their 5G ultra wideband. But you can't say national when it's a city here, city there, city here, city there. And it's only certain blocks of certain cities because they're only putting up these little nodes because of the limited range of the frequency, the millimeter wave, right? Very high frequency doesn't propagate well, limited range. So they've attacked those two things already. Now the question is how? How does the FCC want to change this narrative moving forward? How do they try to control the marketing schemes of the carriers? The FCC actually wants carriers to test the availability and make maps. So drive test the network, make a more accurate portrayal of the maps. Real maps, like scientifically accurate and professional grade maps. Not pink and magenta colored, blotches on a map. Not blue and light blue and whatever splotches on a map. Not dots on a map. I mean, they want real maps because consumers are confused and consumers are being misled. If one was looking at 5G as a legitimate connection now, without a doubt, based on marketing, you would have T-Mobile. Possibly AT&T, right? Depending on what commercial you watched, But you wouldn't have Verizon, even though Verizon's 5G is the fastest, even though Verizon's 5G is the most effective when it comes to actually showing a transcending technology. They're selling you on coverage, but it looks like even they are exaggerating their coverage. So here's the issue here. AT&T and T-Mobile are not cool with this. They do not want to do this testing. They don't want to do the drive testing. They don't want to be held accountable for making more accurate maps. And it's the bottom line. It's the money. This is a very expensive proposition that the FCC obviously is going to dump on the carriers, and they're not going to put it on themselves. That's for sure. Carriers are sitting at their desks singing Peter Griffin's Screw the FCC song right now. Thanks for the super chat, Chucky Riggs. I know that. I remember that episode. They were censoring him on his TV or something, on his TV show, his TV channel. I remember that. AT&T actually came out and spoke to this. And I think it's pretty clear this is going to be a very labor-intensive process. You've got to do the drive testing. You've got to collect the data. You must organize the data, sort the data, and create the maps. All of that requires labor hours, software, hardware, and time. And that's just expensive. AT&T claims that it would cost them $45 million to do the drive testing annually, and that would only be testing LTE, and only 25% of their LTE market, or their LTE coverage. So if you prorate that, that's $90 million for half of their LTE network. That's $180 million for the full access network. So they do claim that 10% of its LTE network would cost about $18 million annually to test. So according to my math, that's $180 million. That's not cheap. T-Mobile also chimed in. They were quoted as saying it is extremely expensive and burdensome to do such testing and compile such data and build such maps. And then they said that the resources would be better suited in investing in the network, especially rural America. Look, there's actually nothing inaccurate about what AT&T and T-Mobile are saying. What they're saying is correct, and it is true. It's expensive, it's time-consuming, it's challenging, and they've got other fish to fry. But the thing about the FCC is, why is the FCC doing this? What does that tell us about how the FCC feels about the broadband availability and the coverage maps of these companies? It tells us that they're not satisfied with the work that they've done to prove the availability of their networks. They're not precise, they're not accurate, and it's not fair to consumers who are basing their purchasing decisions on maps that the providers are giving us. So the FCC wants better maps. They want more accurate maps, more precise maps. They know, and we know, that the carriers are lying about coverage. The SMT Nation will tell you, have a conversation with anyone from the SMT Nation. Carriers exaggerate. Carriers lie. They will manipulate and twist the narrative to make themselves look better and superior to their competition. They're in business. All's fair in love and war, and business is war. They'll tell you and show you on a map that this area has LTE, and it doesn't. It's HSPA. They'll tell you that this area has HSPA, and it doesn't. It's got just edge service, just calling and texting. They'll tell you that this area has native coverage, and then it's roaming, and then they charge you, roaming fees. They've done that in the past. And it gets quite expensive, and they hit you with roaming data. I wonder how much pressure the FCC is actually going to apply the carriers on this. I will be following up on this topic because it's something that's really hard to do, because you're going to be digging into the carriers' pockets, and they want the carriers to build out 5G in a more rapid and accelerated fashion. This is going to put a dent in those plans, because if they have to do more of this, it's going to take more time and spending on their part, and they don't want to do that, right? Running a telecom is already challenging enough. There are other companies that do this in root metrics and open signal and so on. But because they are paid by the companies to do it for them, people question the credibility. Me personally, I've seen situations where RootMetrics really does hold up and is very accurate for areas that I've tested. So I've noticed that RootMetrics is a very, very good option to look for, data on coverage and speeds and performance and things like that. I've questioned Ookla a couple of times, especially recently when they were, covering the Sprint testing. There's no way. Sprint does not have 99% coverage in some of these states. I know for a fact they don't. So I don't know what they were doing with their data or how they were testing or what they find or whatever, but RootMetrics seems to work. OpenSignal is another one that's very popular. Ookla has been brought up in the past. So CellMapper is a nice crowdsourced data collection application. And, although it doesn't take into consideration about half of the phones in the United States because it doesn't do iOS or Apple devices like iPhones, it does do all of the Androids, and it's very good. We just need more of that testing, right? So if you want to help out the wireless tech space, install CellMapper on your Android and do some charting. We'd appreciate that mapping. So that kind of wraps up the second topic. We'll go ahead and pivot to the next item. And before I do move to that item, I would say that you can't trust the carriers when it comes to coverage maps. If you're thinking about switching to a provider or going with a different option, say you have T-Mobile and you're looking to jump ship, you just kind of have to do your homework. Because there might be a situation where all the carriers are the same in your area. Maybe there's just not a lot of tower sites. There's not a big population, so there's not a lot of capacity. Maybe the tower sites are so spread apart. You live in rural America. There may not be a better option. So you may just be purchasing on price, but you'll never know until you test it. Now, like I said, I recommend, and I'll probably do a video on this, I recommend starting with CellMapper, looking at tower density, see how many sites an area has, where you work, where you play, where you hang out, where you visit family. See which network has the most tower sites. That's generally, a good measure of the network performance, generally speaking. Another option is, getting a line, It might be a prepaid line. You might not get the accurate speed testing, but at least you'll have an idea of coverage. And then that's really the only way to do it. And some carriers will let you test them day by day. That's a cool option. You could try that. But that's one of those things, and I'm going to rant about this actually in this last segment of the show. I want to talk about millimeter wave and an interaction I had on Twitter today. So this last little segment's going to be sort of a rant, and I'll get to that now. And I'm going to take a sip of water because I'm about to do this rant thing, Carlos says millimeter wave is king. No argument here. All right, so this last segment that we're going to cover is a bit of a rant. 3G, 4G, LTE, and 5G. I just want to talk about these different technologies. First things first. If you have a 3G only device, or if you have an older device that mostly connects to 3G, you've got to make sure that you upgrade your phone very soon. You should have upgraded it already. But if you haven't, that's going to be a situation where the carriers are going to force the issue. Verizon, most of their traffic is already LTE. They're decomming their 3G shortly, like at the end of this year. T-Mobile is going to be decomming within a year. AT&T is going to be decommissioning, I think, in a year and a half or 2 years. So all of that is in play. It's all going to be 4G LTE and 5G moving forward. So make sure that you start to take the necessary steps to get the new devices on the newer technologies. I don't think it's wise. You don't want to talk down to people and you never know anybody's situation. But if you have a 3G only device, you've probably seen the writing on the wall for the last 5 years. At least the last 3 years. Because for the last 2 years, we've been talking about 5G. And for the last 5 years, we've been talking about advanced LTE. When LTE is in its final evolutionary stages, and we're transitioning over to 5G, that's it for 3G. It's done. You've got to be willing to make those preparations and start looking at changing your device or devices, because the 3G networks will be eliminated. The 3G spectrum assets and those licenses, those holdings, are going to be decommissioned and then refarmed for use on 4G LTE and 5G to bolster capacity, to improve the network experience where most of the devices are. It's just how the carriers are going to do it, and it's the only way to do it. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, and this one is, I think, important because people don't truly understand what 5G is and what 5G is not. 5G is the next generation of wireless technology. It's not a hoax. It's not an opinion. It's the next generation of our wireless technology and wireless networks. It's going to happen. It is what it is. You don't get in the way of a train because you're not going to win. So for those people that are hanging on to this concept that 4G LTE is fine, it's not. It's not fine. The reason 5G is going to exist is because 4G doesn't cut it anymore. It's not just about speed. People say, well, I get 200 megabits per second on LTE. But it's not just about speed. The latencies on LTE are pretty much stuck between 10 to 15 milliseconds if it's a good latency performance. But on average, latencies and pings typically end up in the 20s and the 30s for milliseconds, sometimes 40s and 50s. Our data needs, our data traffic, the LTE is just not going to cut it anymore. It's done a fine job, but we have to start transitioning to something with a higher quality of service, a more dependable service, and higher end performance for the applications and services that we need and we are going to use in the near future. So what I'm getting at is it's not just about the speeds. Yes, the speeds with 5G will be better, but it's also the latency. It's also this concept of smart agriculture with sensor technology, autonomous vehicles, automation, artificial intelligence, factories being automated, robotics. If you don't like those things, that's your personal issue. Your opinion doesn't matter when you're standing in front of a train. 5G is a train, and it's coming. Chucky, big shout out to you. Thanks for the super chat. Ask AT&T, 5G is just an icon. Thus you have 5G. So what I'm saying is, your personal opinion aside, this has to happen. Or else we can't do the augmented reality. We can't do the VR, the virtual reality. We can't do the things we want to do, the network slicing, all these different things that the next generation can do. Right? This next generation of wireless technology. LTE can't do. It's not good enough. And for the people that say that LTE is good enough and it does everything I need it to do, that's a lack of perspective. Your world of just watching videos on your phone is not the world of business and industry. Telehealth, healthcare, surgeries. I mean, there's so many different industries. Mobile inventory. The lack of perspective by people that say things like LTE is good enough for me, you don't get it. You're only looking at it from your perspective. You think that watching 1080p on your phone is all you need it for, but that's not what I need it for. I want to do some of the things that the next generation of technology can do for me. I want the ultra low latencies for gaming. I want the ultra low latencies for the sensors that I'm going to be using in data collection in my classroom as a school teacher. I want the automation. I want the artificial intelligence to make my life more productive and to allow the evolution of technology to allow new industries to form and the economy to blossom. You're standing in front of a train. There's nothing you could do. Get out of the way of 5G. And the last little bit of this rant, let's talk about like 5G and the types of 5G. So we have low band 5G, we have mid band 5G. Both of those are considered sub 6 gigahertz 5G. They're the types of 5G that have really good propagation, in building penetration, things like that. Then you have millimeter wave, which is very high frequency. The propagation characteristics are obviously a little bit more touchy. They struggle with propagation. The range is limited. Vincent, big shout out to you. Thank you for the super chat. The ability to penetrate building materials like bricks and stuff like that, it's very hard to do. There's a place for every type of spectrum holding, whether it's low band, mid band. So low band like 600 megahertz, 700 megahertz. Mid band, like 1700 megahertz, 1900, 2100, 2300, 2500, right? And then even higher, 3.5, 3500, 3900, 6000 gigahertz, things like. But once you go over that, it's a millimeter wave. There is an application for all of it. I just want to say this because I got in a Twitter discussion with I forget the name of the Twitter account. He or she, I'm not sure if it's a he or she, but they were commenting on midband being this crucial part of 5G. That is true. Alexis, thank you for that. Super chat. Don't forget marketing 5G as another type of 5G. That's true. Appreciate the super chat. Low band 5G has its place. It has its limitations. The range is great. The ability to, get through building materials, basements, homes, buildings, apartments, stuff like that. I get it, right? Okay, let's just check your Twitter DM. All right, cool. Appreciate that, Caleb. I'll see if I can get to that at the end of the show. The low band 5G, for example, offers this great propagation characteristics, but you can't get the speed because the channels are narrow. The amount of spectrum in those channels are going to be limited. Low band spectrum holdings, typically we're seeing licenses in certain places, different markets. It's like 5 megahertz, 10 megahertz, 20 megahertz, right? By PayPal donations, you could actually, there's a link in the description box for it. So you could do that if you like. Appreciate it, Gene. Thank you. Then you got mid-band, right? The channels start to get a little bit wider. The channels get larger. Typically, we see like channel sizes 10 megahertz, 20 megahertz. The new auctions, we're going to be seeing things like 40, 80. We've got 100 megahertz potentially. How they set this up, could vary. Right? They could do 240 megahertz channels. That's awesome. 320s, 260s. Like, there's different ways to do it. But millimeter wave, and I understand its limitation with range and the ability to penetrate in buildings. Millimeter wave channels are truly amazing. We're talking about 100 megahertz in spectrum. It's a slam dunk. The capacity in 5G, millimeter wave is going to play a huge role. Does it need to evolve? Does it need to get better? Does it need to improve in its propagation characteristics? Do we need to find ways to get it inside of homes and buildings? Yes, all of that is true. But the bottom line, when it comes to capacity and what 5G is going to do, we need massive, huge, enormous channels of bandwidth. Low band does not offer that. And in case you guys aren't aware, for all the listeners out there and those that are here in the live chat and watching this on the YouTube side, rural America, while it makes up a large footprint of the country, it does not make up a large population segment of the country. To give you perspective, I would estimate that probably 70% of the United States population lives in cities. Whether it's suburban America or urban city centers, Dallas, Houston, LA, Chicago, New York City, Philadelphia, Miami, and so on. Most of our population resides there. So where are the capacity needs? They are in those cities. Those cities need millimeter wave. Mid-band will not cut it. You will see, even when T-Mobile deploys its full spectrum holdings of 2.5 gigahertz, the network will get congested. There will be times where mid-band will not cut it. Millimeter wave will be required. So I speak to this only with my goal or my mission and intention being that millimeter wave is going to be a huge part of 5G. Just like I was talking about the train of 5G, just get out of the way. It's the same thing with millimeter wave. It doesn't matter how you feel about it, it's going to be a big part of 5G. And I'm not just talking about 5G mobility, I'm talking about residential, fixed wireless, home 5G, and with industries and businesses, and enterprise application. It provides the most capacity because it has the largest bandwidth. It has the most spectrum, these huge channels. We're literally talking about situations and scenarios. Next year, you will see Verizon and AT&T with 800 megahertz of millimeter wave deployed, achieving 3 or 4 gigabits per second in mobility. And people will be using it. Businesses will be using it. Homes will be using it. Those that have it available in their markets. It's going to take time. It's going to take a decade or more to make it ubiquitous. I'm understanding of that. But 10 years when it comes to technology is 3 blinks of an eye, right? A lot can change in 10 years. In 10 years, it may seem far from now, but I remember 10 years ago when LTE was just starting. Here we are at the apex, and we're transitioning. Alexis, you're right. Rural America is a big market. It's a market that doesn't need millimeter wave on the, consumer side, right? And they probably just need low band and possibly the occasional mid-band application. What I'm emphasizing is this. I think some people have 5G misunderstood. They think you just need low band and mid band, or you just need mid band. That's not the way it works. You need it all. If you look at in the NBA with basketball, if somebody can only hit 3-pointers, yeah, they're valuable in that way, but if they don't play defense, they're a liability. Or if you look at, a situation for a car or a truck, they each have their application. If you only own a car, you'll never be able to tow, right? There's different tools for different needs. So what I'm trying to emphasize is every type of frequency, whether it's low band, mid band, or millimeter wave, it has its place, and they're all a big part of what they're doing moving forward. Caleb, I don't like the layer cake analogy because it makes me feel like a child. Shout out to Neville Ray with his, layer cake. But he's right in that all types of spectrum are required to build out a true, comprehensive, and effective 5G network. It's the same thing we did with LTE, right? We just never got to millimeter wave for LTE, right? It was all low band and mid band. And, that's the situation. And I'll kind of wrap this up with a little bit about millimeter wave. And this is the last thing I'll do, and then we'll wrap up the podcast. A lot of people don't understand what millimeter wave is and what it isn't. Millimeter wave is really fast. Millimeter wave has tons of capacity. Millimeter wave has difficulty penetrating glass. It does reflect quite a bit. It does penetrate, but it's not as effective. It has its limitations, but it's not as bad as people think because Verizon is proving that. Echo technologies, repeater technologies, beamforming technologies, all of this is going to make that a lot better. But they say things like millimeter wave doesn't work in the rain. That's completely false. It works just fine in the rain. I've tested it for T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T. They all work in the rain. All their 5G applications with millimeter wave. They say it doesn't work in buildings. I have proven that it does in my testing. They say that you have to be in line of sight. That is not true. I've used millimeter wave inside of buildings. Inside of cars where they said it would not. Stetson, I want to welcome you to the channel. Thank you for stopping by, and I really do appreciate the donation. And I really do appreciate your channel, and I've enjoyed your content for a while. Thank you for doing what you do, and thank you for that donation. It'd be a pleasure to have you on the show. We'll get in contact. I'll DM you on Twitter. We'll figure something out. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you. Everybody who has an opinion of millimeter wave has not used it. This is the same way. This is the way it always is. People speak on things they don't know. They really don't. The reason why you know they haven't used it is because if you've used it, you have an experience, an accurate portrayal of what that technology could do. Usually when people say something bad about the Samsung Galaxy Note, it's because they don't have it. They don't know it. Use it and then come back and tell me about the Note, because I've used it and it's a phenomenal device. Same thing about a Google phone. Oh, the Google phones suck. Have you used one? If so, when was the last one you used? You need to ask these questions to, these naysayers. Like today on Twitter, somebody said, millimeter wave doesn't work in cars. False. I have video footage of me testing it in cars. And it works and it transmits. Millimeter wave doesn't work in buildings. False. I have used it. I have proven that it works in buildings. Is it as effective as if you were in line of sight? No, it's not as effective, but it still connects. You're saying it doesn't. It does. Here's my point. Those that are naysayers that have not used the technology, don't know what they're talking about, they make claims. Here's what I would say to them. Have you purchased the $1,300 device to test millimeter wave? Have you paid the line access fee for millimeter wave access? Have you gone and located these sites? Have you gone and actually tested the technology? If the answer to all of that is no, you are not an authority on the topic. I have tested T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon's millimeter wave. I know about those networks in the Cleveland area market and the Columbus area market. I also have friends and colleagues that also test this. Carlos S. Tech, big shout out to him and his channel. He does this type of testing. Big shout out to Tech Extremist. He's done this type of testing. When people speak about things they don't know and they have no credibility, don't take their word for it. Those are misconceptions, those are inaccuracies and fallacies. If you really want to know what a network can and can't do, buy the phone, get the access, locate the network, and do the testing yourself. Oh, and let me say this. Don't just do that, but prove it. Record video footage. Upload it to your YouTube channel. Come on to my podcast or my YouTube channel and tell me I'm wrong. Because I've tested it all. I went and did all of these things. You can't discredit me with actual real-world experience. I paid the fees. I did the testing. I recorded the data. I edited the video, and I uploaded it. Something that those people probably aren't willing to do. You must test and experience it for yourself to draw your conclusions accurately. And that pretty much wraps up that topic. See, I didn't want to, go off on a rant too much. But honestly, guys, I'm really starting to, be annoyed by, those people that are naysayers about technologies, but they're not buying the phones, they're not paying the fees, and they're not doing those things. So I just wanted to kind of rant a little bit, and I'm done. I don't want to spend too much time on that. So I see there's a lot of discourse going on in the live chat, so I do appreciate you guys, getting involved and, wow, you guys got a lot to talk about. Cool. Carlos says Verizon millimeter wave works in the car and inside parts of casino. It worked fine. Carlos, I agree. I get it to work inside the garage at the bakery, a brick building. I get it to work inside the deli portion, which has glass and awnings, and I don't even see the nodes, so it's not even like it's line of sight, right? It's interesting you bring that up. Caleb says, I got millimeter wave inside of a bar in Columbus. Yes, that's right. I've tested inside of locations as well. Stetson says, I will say I think Verizon needs to do better with BYOD 5G devices. Took 3 trips to Verizon store and multiple phone calls to figure out I needed a dedicated 5G SIM. I didn't even know that was a policy because from what I understand, it just needs to be on your plan. You just got to either have it included in your plan access, so like the play more, do more, get more, right? Or you have to pay the fee on any of the older plans, which I think is a $10 access fee. So really wish reps had more info on 5G, knew what they were talking about. Yeah, they're not as trained as they should be. I totally agree with that. Totally agree. Alexis, the Starlink thing, I'm looking into it. I didn't get a chance to get to it today. I'm going to try to do it this weekend. I should have some time at least on Sunday. Knox says, no stream buffer here. Info assistant, it must be T-Mobile buffering. Oh, no. Maverick says, I use both NPerf and CellMapper. Great combination. Yeah, I use the CellMapper. I don't use NPerf. I used to use NPerf, actually, a couple of years ago. It has to be a 5G SIM. I've never heard of a 5G SIM. I've had the same SIM card in my phone for at least 2 years. And I have 5G access, and it was just a feature that they added on my plan. I didn't have to do anything with my SIM, so I'm not sure what that's going on there. Yeah, Pete, we get it. You got the best fiber. We know. Trailboy Gaming says NPerf can help me find millimeter wave sites. I'm not sure. I know CellMapper might, as long as it's been mapped. So if you ever come to the CLE, I've mapped it. Bob says I'm on Verizon and you are buffering a little. Oh, I don't think so, man. I'm looking at the connectivity right now. I have like a meter that shows, and it doesn't show buffering. Usually it does when it does. So Chucky says we need hashtag real maps. I totally agree, man. I don't know if that's the case, Ricky. I have just the regular nano SIM. I've had it for 2 years, and that's even before Verizon launched their millimeter wave. So I don't know, dude. Noxus Spectrum throttles video. It sucks. All right, well, since we're buffering, let's just go ahead and end this. Thank you all for being here to watch. Appreciate it very much. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. I want to thank you all for being a part of the SMT community. Thank you for watching all my videos. Thank you for liking them, rating them. Thank you for sharing them. Big shout out to those that share my videos on Twitter and Facebook and all those things. You guys are amazing. You don't have to donate money to help the channel. That is obviously appreciated, and I really do appreciate the generosity and those that donate. But you can help without paying money and donating. You can share all the videos and like all the videos. That helps just as much, in my opinion. So that does help the channel grow. So do like this video and share it. Also, let's do some hashtags. If you watch this on the live, hashtag 2LiveCrew. If you're watching this after it aired, hashtag ReplayCrew. If you watch this while eating dinner or you're hungry, hashtag Ravioli Gang. And if you got a Big Blue wrench and you held it down for me, Big Blue name, hashtag Mod Squad. You guys are the best. Appreciate you all. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for donating. Thank you all for getting involved in the chat. I love doing these shows, and this is why. The SMT community is truly amazing. Do me a solid if you just stumbled in here, first time here, maybe you got a recommend from YouTube, or you've been lurking and hanging out, but you haven't yet subscribed. What are you waiting for? Subscribe, hit that subscribe button, and then don't forget to ding the bell. That'll give you notifications whenever I do upload new videos to the channel. And then if you're looking to take your SMT Nation involvement one step further, do consider becoming an SMT patron. There's a link in the description box for it. We've got 4 tiers, different ways to donate, support production here on the channel, and then can get continued access, early access videos, additional content, unique interactions and things like that. And that pretty much wraps up this video. Thank you all for being here. You guys are the best part of this channel. If it wasn't for you guys, where would this channel be? You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for supporting me. And we're looking to bring you more content and continuing to do big things in the future. Thank you all so much for taking the time to watch. And we do appreciate you. Again, I am the SMT, and we will catch you all in the next one. Peace. Yeah.